let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. She's walking down the street.
Okay, I'm in downtown Hollywood, California, if you will. And I'm a little south of Sunset Boulevard, right off McCadden Avenue. And where I'm going to take you fans of Jimi Hendrix and of course the Doors, where they recorded Waiting for the Sun, their third album, their first #1 album in the US. I'm going to take you to a place called TTG Recording Studios, where Jimi held court through the whole month of October 1968, right after finishing his US tour. He finished it off at the Hollywood Bowl, and then he went to Sacramento, and then they took 2 weeks off, and then they came here to TTG. And I'm gonna take you fans right now. I wanted to start a couple of 100 feet away because there's some construction going on and it's a real racket. So bear with me. And I want to go here because Jimi Hendrix, he recorded some of his best material here. Peace in Mississippi, Isabella, Hey Baby, Land of the Rising Sun, Gloria. And I don't know where they recorded that video for Gloria. It used to be on YouTube, and unfortunately I guess they took it off. And I remember right after they recorded Gloria here on McCadden at TTG Studios, they must have recorded a video for it when they went back to New York at the record plant. I thought it was actually inside TTG Studios, but who knows. I tried to find it and it's not there anymore. But anyway, it came out on The Essential Jimi Hendrix Volume 2 in 1978. But I dare not use any Jimi Hendrix because for whatever reason, Jimi Hendrix music is the only music. For whatever reason, they mute it. You put it up, you upload it with your video, and they mute it. So I started it out, of course, with Hello, I Love You. And here we go, McCadden Place. And I thought it would be a propos because they did, the Doors, record their third album here at TTG, Two Tough Guys. It was named after Tom Hidley and Ami Hadani. Ami Hadani, according to Bruce Botnick, the engineer for the Doors, he said that Ami was a Israeli general, and every time that, in that time period when Israel would go to war, he would disappear. I think he was a general for the Air Force in the Israeli armed forces. And Tom Hidley, he was a genius recording engineer. And they both got together somehow, and they founded this place in 1965. And this is where Freak Out was recorded with Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And I'm coming up. There's people over there right now. But there's a story when Jim Morrison, the night that they were recording when they were recording 5 to 1, they said he pulled up in a Peak convertible with a Starlet Sable Sperling, and they said he was so fucked up, messed up on downers that he was just taken out of a baggie that this gal named Sable Sperling was carrying, and then he was gulping down bourbon whiskey, and he was so messed up. And when you hear that song 5 to 1, you can see that he comes off on the wrong beat, on the wrong time. But the song was actually already recorded. They just had to put vocals on that night. But they said for whatever reason, as fucked up and messed up as he was able to get it perfect the first time, they said. And so they decided that it must have been meant for the song to be off kilter like that, off the beat. And it actually worked when you hear the song. So let's go over here. Here it is, TTG Studios. There you go. And I thought I'd get this for posterity, because every time you go all over Hollywood, they've been tearing all this stuff out, and it's a miracle that this is still standing. And while they were filming, or rather they were recording Waiting for the Sun, Ray Manzarek in his book Light My Fire, they said that there was a place right here in the corner called Pete's Drive-In, and he said that they made the best patty mouths, cherry lime rickeys, and Suzy Q's. And Jimmy also, when he was here recording in that whole month of October 1968, they said that he loved the Suzy Q's too. And now look at all we got is all this commercial bullshit, all this prepared processed junk. Well, at least it's still here. TTG Studios. In fact, Waiting for the Sun, that's the song that gave Jim Morrison the hook line, I am the Lizard King from Not to Touch the Earth. And I sure would like to go in there. They said that he recorded out of Studio B in the basement, and they said the reason why he liked it here because it was super advantageous to be super loud. In fact, when he started that day in October, they said that Ricky Nelson and the Everly Brothers were upstairs in Studio A, and Ami Hadani said he came downstairs because he said the sound was so loud it was blasting through the basement all the way up to the top stairs. And he told the engineer at the time, Angel Ballastier, he said, hey, turn down those consoles. He goes, consoles? What do you mean? He goes, that's Jimmy and the boys, man. So this is where it happened, in Studio B. And they said that when he was here that whole month, he never turned anybody away. Groupies, anybody who wanted to drop in off the street was welcomed. Jimmy was a cool cat, mensch guy, never turned anybody away. Drugs galore, LSD. Hell, even the cops on their beat, they said, we'll walk in, and they let them in, and they take them into the control room. And of course, I don't know if the cop was just pretending or whatever, but they said the cop was digging it when they took him into the control room. And there was groupies, like I said, and Steven Stills jammed with Jimmy here, and they actually got it on tape, but they said they lost the tapes or they were stolen. And in fact, he even jammed with Jack Bruce from Cream and Jim McCarty from the Yardbirds, and that's on tape. And one of my favorite songs of Jimmy, if you're a fan of Jimi Hendrix, man, I love that song, Peace of Mississippi. He recorded it here, and it came out in Voodoo Soup, the original way that he played it here. And then it came out in Crash Landing, but they overdubs with somebody else playing drums, not Mitch Mitchell, and some other people playing bass, and they completely massacred the song. But if you want to hear the original, get Voodoo Soup. I highly encourage it. Okay, and they said Frank Zappa, he was here. And then of course the Velvet Underground and Nico, their first album, they recorded 3 songs, the famous Heroin. They had actually recorded that in New York, and then they re-recorded it here. And then they recorded I'm Waiting for the Man, Venus and Furs. And that was the first album that the Velvet Underground put out, and Lou Reed was a constant guest here. And like I said, Steven Stills, Dewey Martin, Buddy Miles, hell, even Ricky Nelson hung out with Jimmy here. And Ike Turner, because Jimmy once knew him on the Chitlin circuit. And Bill Calsil from the Calsils, the famous song Hair. The Calsils were a big group in the 1960s. It was a family, a la the Osmond Brothers, but they did pretty good music. Hell, they were even on Playboy After Dark with Hugh Hefner, so they must have been kind of hip, right? Okay, I wanted to say that here at TTG, they had one of the first 16-track tape machines in California, and that's what really turned on Jimi to record here, with all those layers that he could add on to his songs, all that fantastic multi-layered stuff with 16 tracks. And they said that when he left here in October of 1968, he took all those tracks, and what Angel Ballestier had to do is he had to transfer them from the 2-inch 16 track tapes to 1-inch 8-track, so that Jimi could mix them over there at the record plant in New York, because they only had 8-track and this place actually had 16 tracks. Imagine what the guy could do with that in his mind. He was thinking, oh man, it's like limitless. Okay, the history, if these walls could talk. Jimi's gone, of course, and Jim, 27 years old, now Ray's gone, and of course Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding, they're gone, but at least they once graced their soul matter, their life matter in this place. And if you could only have been here in 1968. Okay, and I want to say, when the Doors finished recording here for their 3rd album, they put it out July 3rd on a Wednesday, and then on July 5th, Friday, they that's when they performed at the Hollywood Bowl, the famous Live at the Hollywood Bowl. So they had just finished and released that album, and like I said, it was their first #1 hit. And everywhere I go in this Hollywood, they're tearing everything down in the name of capitalism, I guess, right? And for what it's worth, Tom Hidley, he was such an expert on electronics that he helped Madman Monts make the first 4-track car stereo. And the reason why Jimi started recording here in October is because he was actually producing an album for the band that was his opening act, and starting in August of 1968, Heir Apparent. Well, his manager, the guy that managed him, he wanted him to help Heir Apparent, because he managed Heir Apparent. He wanted Jimi, to produce that album, just like Chas Chandler had produced his. And he never really got down to it. And it was eventually made. I think it was made in New York, Heir Apparent's album, Sunrise. And Sonny Bono even came to see Jimi here. And the Fraternity of Man and the Association, I mean, Jimi didn't turn anybody away. Look Over Yonder was first recorded here, and when he was here, Electric Ladyland was released, his 3rd album in the UK, October 25th, 1968. I gotta get away from that racket. And okay, I wanted to say one more thing, that when Jimi was recording here, he took a break and he went to go play a concert in Bakersfield, California. And Jimi, you can see a poster, in fact that picture that I showed you fans in that book there with his white boots, he was dressed like that when he went to that concert that he did in Bakersfield, California. And there's a poster, and those kids from that backcountry way of life that they were used to, they're just sitting in those chairs looking up at him, man, like, is this guy for real, man? He's like from another planet or something? But of course Jimi, he looked like somebody that 50 years later, like the way people look today, alternative as hell. Well, the people, they're just looking up at him, all the young kids. Anyway, he got so provocative and he got so into his music that he offended the guy that owned the auditorium, and he actually, if you can believe it, he unplugged Jimmy. He literally turned out the lights, and then they got in a scuffle at the back with the manager, and the manager was calling him racial epithets. And then the cops, actually, the sheriffs actually escorted Jimmy and his entourage to the 99 freeway. Can you imagine? Jimi Hendrix, they could do that to him. Hell, none of us are safe. Okay, well, for what it's worth, Jimmy, Jim, Ray, Noel, Mitch, wherever you're at, good night, sweet princess.